Hi there, my name is Adrian, and I'm 26 years old. Before I get into this story, I just want to say, if you want to see more videos like this, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you want, hit that like button. Your support means a lot. I work as a substitute teacher, but with the recent events, it's been a little harder for me to find positions. However, one did open for a junior college class. I took the opportunity to teach it since, again, things were getting kind of tight money-wise. I was only supposed to teach for 2 weeks, which was fine. The pay was more than enough. Nothing interesting really happened during the online classes, except for one student. Now, I don't force anyone to talk if they don't want to. I find that annoying when it's forced on me. But there was this one student, her name was Mika. Only reason I knew it was because it was on the screen. I don't think she was shy, only because she kept staring at me throughout the lesson. I don't think she looked away from the screen. At first, I thought it was because I was replacing their usual teacher for a couple of weeks. So I was like, "Don't worry, your usual teacher will be back soon, don't sweat it." Well, that didn't help, apparently. At the end of the first lesson, Mika was the last person to leave, and only because I closed the room. It kind of creeped me out, but I didn't think much of it. Now, this part of the story may seem completely unrelated, but trust me, it's not. There was this corner cafe that I went to every weekend before work. One of the regulars there was a woman named Grace. She and I used to talk regularly, and, long story short, we've gone on a couple of dates. Nothing too serious yet. She was also aware of my growing financial troubles, and was the one who helped me get the position I had. She never mentioned anything about her family, though. Now, moving away from Grace, I'm going back to Mika, the student. As the first week progressed, Mika just kept staring at me, didn't say anything, didn't cause any trouble, just stared at me. The second day, I learned to ignore it. That weekend, I got an email from one of my temporary students. Attached to it was a file, a screen-recorded video. It was from Mika's Instagram account. She was live in the video. In the clip of her live, she mentioned me by name. "Mr. Adrian is so broke he can barely sub from home." I wasn't quite sure what kind of insult that was, but it was an insult nonetheless. One I didn't take too well. So, I did some research. Well, to my surprise and convenience, Grace, the woman who I had taken out a few times, was her mother. It did surprise me a bit. They were nothing alike. But to be fair, I haven't seen enough of Mika to really gauge that very accurately. Anyway, call me immature if you like, but I wanted to have a little fun with this. I checked her Instagram, and it turns out that her and Grace were loaded with money. Designer clothes, big house, fancy cars. It was everything most people dreamed of having. That made an idea pop into my head. I didn't think Grace knew I was Mika's teacher. Nor did I think Mika knew I casually went out with her mother. So, during the weekend, I called Grace and asked if she was okay with getting together for a little. She told me she was hoping I'd ask, and already had the preparations necessary. So we set up the date for that Sunday. When we met up, we stayed outside, farther away from people. We were catching up about life when she brought up Mika. She's always been popular at school, so suddenly not being able to physically see her friends is hard, she said. Though she has a habit of being awfully quiet around those she likes. Well, that sounded pretty familiar. Though I didn't even want to think about that. At the end of the date, as you would probably call it, I asked if she wanted to make it official. She agreed. Faster than I anticipated. "I would love to," she said. "I've really grown to like you a lot, so this is amazing." That just made it easier. So Grace and I officially started dating. I did tell her not to tell Mika it was me specifically, though. I wanted to formally introduce myself. She thought it was fine and promised to keep me as anonymous as she could. The following Monday in class, things were odd. all of the students no longer listened to me when I spoke, or refused to take my lessons seriously. I wondered if Mika's popularity was so high that the others would follow her an example. I thought maybe it was a one-time thing, that it was a prank for a good and hearty laugh. Well, it wasn't. Up until Friday, my last day of subbing, they were probably the most disrespectful class I'd ever taught. Mika, though, finally spoke. "Bro, just quit teaching already. It's obvious it's never gotten you far." Of course, all the other students oohed and awed about it, believing it was an amazing insult. Which it would have been, had I not have been doing my job. So, it was during that time I finally decided to introduce myself. "That's why I'm dating your mom." The class went silent. Mika just stared at me until she shut off her camera and left the class. I excused the students and closed the room. That's when I received a text from Grace which said, "Call me." When I did, all I heard was Mika screeching in the background. "So, I heard you told her," Grace said. She didn't sound too happy. In my defense, Mika mocked me on her Instagram for my financial situation. Which, by the way, how would she even know that? Grace was oddly silent. "She asked about you. I had nothing else to tell her." "So instead of saying my basic information, you told her my monetary business?" All Grace said back was that I'll have a talk with her, and she hung up. I didn't expect much to come from that. She didn't text me for 2 days, until the evening of that Sunday. She texted me saying, "Come to my house," and gave me her address. To be honest, I just wanted all of this to be over. I know I started it, sort of, but after the first day it got boring. But I did go to her house. She told me she wanted to talk to me about some stuff, and that she wanted me and Mika to have a talk as well. What Grace and I talked about wasn't necessarily that important, only that she asked how I knew she was Mika's mother. "I looked at your daughter's Instagram account. After she slandered me on her live, I was curious to see who her parents or family were." She then apologized that she didn't tell me about having a daughter or money, which again was a prominent thing. Their house was absolutely huge. About 15 minutes after I arrived, Mika came down from her bedroom. "Mika, I want you and Adrian to have a talk. I believe there are some things you need to say to him," she said. Mika didn't say anything, and Grace went off into another room. Mika sat on the couch next to me and just stared at me, like she did the first week of class. "Is there something you wish to talk about?" I asked. I tried my best to keep the atmosphere from turning awkward, but it was hard, especially when she didn't react or respond to anything I said. "If you're not going to say anything, then there's no reason for me to stay here with you," I said. Just as I was about to leave, Mika grabbed my arm. "Wait, no." Well, at least she spoke. "I'm sorry I insulted you that one time," she said. 2, actually. But that's good enough, I replied. I didn't do it because I hate you or because you're a bad person." I stayed quiet, waiting for her to finish her thought. "I did it because I wanted your attention." Okay, now I was confused. My attention? "I was in the same class as you. All you had to do was raise your hand," I replied. She told me that's not what she meant. Before I could get into the nitty-gritty of what she did mean, Grace walked into the room. "Adrian, it's getting late into the evening. You should get home before it gets dark," she said. I agreed, and I left soon after. When the front door closed behind me, I could hear Grace yell at Mika about something, but it was too muffled to make out. Mika let out a screech before I heard her very loud footsteps going up the stairs. I didn't want to cross any boundaries, so I went home. Since I was done teaching for the 2 weeks, I received my pay for it, and I didn't have anything else the entire week. Skip past a few days to that Wednesday. I received a text from an unknown number that said, "Meet at Central Cafe." Simple, to the point. Again, I had no idea whose number it was, and trusting its word and going there could prove to be a mistake. But I decided to go anyway, because screw it, you only live once, and it could be fun. They didn't specify what time, so I went then, just to get it over with. And who knows, they could have already been there. How they got my number, though, I have no idea. When I get to the cafe, there's not a lot of people inside or out of it, nor did I see anyone I didn't recognize. I stayed there for about 15 minutes and decided to leave after that. Before I could make it across the street, I heard someone call my name. When I looked around, Mika was standing where I previously was, waving her arm. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, that we just happened to cross paths with each other. But when she pointed at her phone, I knew it wasn't a coincidence, and that she was the one who wanted to meet with me there. I didn't want to, but I decided to see what she wanted. When Mika and I actually sat down, she was a lot more reserved, to herself. I didn't know if it was because of the circumstance or if that's just how she got, but I asked her if there was anything wrong. She just kind of mumbled to herself at first. I told her to speak a little louder and clearer for me to hear. She just looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "I'm jealous of my mom." Well, that was a turn of events. I asked her why she was jealous of her. "Because she knew I was attracted to you, and yet she took you away from me." Whoa, what? I'd known Grace just a little longer than Mika, and she was my student. I hadn't even thought of her in that light. Mika went on to say, "I'm not talking to my mom. Not until you break up with her and give me the same attention you gave her." Well, damn. I had no idea what to do from there. I told her just to give me some time to figure things out. She told me she's given me enough, that she needed an answer then. I somehow was able to get away from her after 20 minutes of her trailing behind me. Wouldn't surprise me if she showed up at my door. I know what I should do, but I also don't want to risk getting into any legal trouble. I do like Grace, but that could also cause some issues. What do you think I should do? Leave your answers down in the comments.